The alien scout ship dropped out of hyperdrive just beyond Earth's moon. Chief Xenobiologist Crixtal-9 adjusted the long-range sensors with his 4 tentacles, each movement precise and practiced. For 300 cycles, the Galactic Council had kept Earth on the primitive species watch list. Today marked the first actual inspection mission. Initial scans confirmed the database entries, his assistant chirped through the comm. Radiation levels consistent with a pre-industrial world. No electromagnetic signatures indicating advanced technology. Crixtal-9 felt his primary brain pulse with curiosity. The Council had logged hundreds of primitive worlds, but something about this one intrigued him. Perhaps it was the unusual planetary water distribution, or the single moon that created such unique tidal patterns. Whatever the reason, he had volunteered for this mission when others seemed bored by the prospect of watching Stone Age creatures hunt with spears. "Take us into standard observation orbit," he ordered. "Deploy the cloaking field and prepare the stealth probes. I want comprehensive biological scans before we attempt any closer observations." The ship glided silently above the blue planet, invisible to any technology the primitives might possess. Crixtal-9 studied the data streaming across his neural interface. The planet showed signs of limited tool use, fires burning and scattered, locations, basic agriculture in some regions, and what appeared to be simple tribal structures. "Sir, I'm detecting a small group near the coast," the sensor operator announced. "They appear to be gathering resources." Crixtal-9 activated the visual display. Below, he could see a group of the bipedal creatures moving along the shoreline. Their bodies were covered in rough animal skins, and they carried primitive tools. One of them, slightly larger than the others, appeared to be directing the gathering operations. "Fascinating," Crixtal-9 murmured. "Deploy Probe 7 for a closer look. Keep the others scanning for any defensive reactions." The probe descended, silently, its advanced cameras focusing on the group below. Through the display, Crixtal-9 watched as the large male, designation Jake Miller according to the translator's best approximation of their vocal patterns, gestured toward the water. Several others responded immediately, wading into the shallows, with nets woven from plant fibers. What struck Crixtal-9 as odd was their efficiency. These creatures moved with purpose and coordination that seemed unusual for such a primitive species. When one of them found a large fish, they communicated through a series of grunts and gestures that seemed almost organized. "Sensor operator, are you detecting any anomalies in their tool construction?" A pause. "Now that you mention it, sir, the cutting edges on their implements show machine precision. But that's impossible for pre-industrial technology." Crixtal-9 filed that observation away for later consideration. Perhaps these creatures were more clever with their simple tools than the database suggested. He had seen other primitive species develop surprisingly effective techniques through trial and error over generations. The probe followed the group as they moved inland. The large male, Miller, stopped at what appeared to be a central gathering point, a clearing surrounded by simple structures. Another creature, a female the translator designated as Lucy Kim, emerged from one of the larger structures. "Accessing communication translation matrix," the linguistics officer announced, attempting to decode their verbal patterns. Static filled the channel, then gradually cleared into rough approximations of sounds. "Hunt. Good. Water." Miller's voice came through heavily distorted. "Prepare. Others. Tomorrow. Gather." Kim responded. The words were primitive, the grammar almost non-existent. Yet something about their tone suggested more complexity than the simple vocabulary indicated. Crixtal-9 had studied hundreds of primitive languages, and most showed consistent patterns of development. This felt different. "Sir, I'm picking up unusual electromagnetic interference near their camp," the sensor operator reported. "It's almost like what? Like they're using some kind of shielding, but that's impossible. They don't even have fire control yet, according to our scans." Crixtal-9 felt a twinge of unease. In his experience, when things seemed impossible, it usually meant his assumptions were wrong. "Continue observations. I want behavioral pattern analysis for the next sol cycle. Document everything. their tools, their communication, their social structure. For the next several hours, the probe recorded everything. The humans, for that's what the database called them, moved through their daily activities with what seemed like practiced efficiency. They crafted tools, prepared food, and organized tasks with precision that troubled Crystal 9's analytical mind. As the planetary rotation brought darkness to their observation zone, something caught his attention. The humans had gathered around, a central fire, but their seating arrangement was too symmetrical, too organized. They weren't simply clustering around warmth. They were positioned strategically, each with clear sight lines to multiple points around the camp. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted his thoughts. "We're receiving scheduled transmission from Galactic Council. They want our initial assessment." Crystal 9 considered for a moment. The easy response would be to confirm the database. Entries: primitive, pre-industrial, no immediate threat or interest. But something nagged at him about these humans. The precision of their tools, the organization of their camps, the efficiency of their movements. It all added up to a feeling he couldn't quite articulate. "Tell them we're conducting extended observations," he decided. "Recommend continued monitoring to understand their developmental trajectory better. I want at least 3 more cycles of data before we file a complete report." As his crew acknowledged the orders, Crystal 9 returned to watching the human camp. Something told him these primitives were more than they appeared. In his long career, he had learned to trust those instincts. Below, the humans maintained their illusion of simplicity, never suspecting that their greatest secret was about to be challenged by the very curiosity they had hoped to avoid. 3,000 miles away from the alien probe, Ben Carter sat in a control room buried deep underground. Dozens of screens displayed different scenes from around the globe. Each showed groups of humans pretending to live as primitives, unaware they were being watched by alien visitors. "Sir, the probe is still hovering over Sector 7, Amy Rodriguez said through his earpiece. "They've been watching us for 6 hours now." Ben adjusted his microphone. "Maintain the act, Rodriguez. Remember your training. Slow movements, basic, tools only, and keep the language simple." Above ground, Amy Rodriguez moved through the forest with practiced clumsiness. To any observer, she appeared to be a primitive human searching for food. Her clothing was rough animal hide. Her spear was wooden with a stone tip, and her movements seemed uncertain. But inside her simple-looking pouch were quantum communication devices that connected her to the underground command center. She stopped at a stream, pretending to search for fish. The reflection in the water showed her dirty face and tangled hair, the perfect image of a primitive human, but her eyes were sharp and focused, constantly aware of her surroundings. "Group 3 has finished their hunt," she spoke quietly. The words seemed like mumbles to anyone listening, but the quantum implant in her throat translated them clearly to Ben. "Should we perform the return ritual?" "Yes, but make it look natural. Remember, primitives aren't organized. Let some of them wander off first." Above, in the alien probe, Crystal 9 watched Amy with growing confusion. She moved like someone hunting, but her pattern was too efficient. When she found fish, she caught them too easily. Her spear work was too precise for someone supposedly learning by trial and error. "Something's wrong," he told his crew. "Expand the probe network. I want eyes on multiple human groups simultaneously." Within minutes, 3 more probes were deployed across the planet. Each found the same pattern: humans living in primitive conditions but displaying unusual skills and organization. In the underground facility, Ben monitored all the probe locations. This was the scenario they had prepared for ever since humans first detected alien visitors centuries ago. The plan was simple: appear primitive and harmless until humanity could better understand these aliens' intentions. "Director, we have a problem," his second-in-command called from across the room. "The aliens are deploying more probes. They're expanding their observation net." Ben nodded. They had expected this possibility. "Activate Protocol 7. Have all groups increase their primitive behaviors. More mistakes, more confusion, more genuine-looking primitive activities." Across the planet, human primitives received the directive through their quantum implants. They began acting more clumsy, arguing more among themselves, and making more obvious errors in their daily tasks. Amy Rodriguez stumbled while carrying water back to her camp. The wooden bucket she carried was actually made of advanced polymers designed to break at just the right moment. Water spilled across the ground, and she cursed in what sounded like primitive grunts, but were actually carefully chosen words. Excellent performance, Rodriguez. Ben's voice came through her implant. The probe recorded your frustration perfectly. But in space, Crixtal 9 wasn't convinced. He had studied hundreds of primitive species, and something about human development troubled him. Their tools were too symmetrical. Their camps were positioned too strategically. And now, as he watched multiple groups simultaneously, he noticed they all made mistakes at suspiciously convenient times. Run a pattern analysis on all human groups, he ordered. I want to see if there's any correlation in their activities. The council representative, Vex Mora, floated over to his station. You suspect deception, Crixtal 9? I suspect something. Look at this data. He displayed a series of observations. Group 1 spills water. Group 3 drops food. Group 5 breaks a tool. All within a 3-minute window. Either they're remarkably coordinated for primitives or this is no coincidence. Vex Mora finished. Back on Earth, Ben watched the alien activity with growing concern. The aliens were starting to connect dots they shouldn't be connecting. He had to make a decision. All units, this is Control. Implement randomization protocol immediately. We need to break any patterns they might be detecting. Amy received the new instructions and adapted quickly. Instead of her planned path back to camp, she wandered aimlessly, appearing genuinely lost. She stopped to examine plants she had no intention of using, poked at rocks that held no value, and generally behaved like someone with no clear purpose. The change was subtle but effective. Across the planet, human groups began displaying truly random behavior. Some succeeded at tasks they had previously failed. Others failed at tasks they had managed before. The pattern the aliens were detecting dissolved into natural chaos. Crixtal 9 watched the change with frustration. They changed their behavior the moment we started detecting patterns. This can't be coincidence. Perhaps we're overthinking this, Vex Mora suggested. Primitive species often display random behavior. It's what makes them primitive. No, Crixtal 9 insisted. Watch their eyes. When they make mistakes, watch their eyes. They don't show surprise. They show calculation. In his underground command center, Ben felt a cold sweat form on his brow. The lead alien was more perceptive than they had anticipated. If Crixtal 9 figured out the truth now, before humanity was ready to reveal itself, the consequences could be catastrophic. All teams, Ben announced, prepare for potential exposure. We may need to move to Protocol 13 ahead of schedule. Protocol 13 meant revealing humanity's true nature to the aliens. It was a scenario they hoped never to use, but Ben could see the writing on the wall. These aliens were too smart, and Earth's humans were running out of primitive behavior to fake. Above ground, Amy Rodriguez continued her act, knowing that every movement might be humanity's last performance in this greatest of all deceptions. Far from Earth's surface, Steve Johnson stood on the command deck of humanity's flagship, the Star Hunter. Through the viewport, he could see dozens of cloaked vessels holding position near Earth's asteroid belt. Each ship was invisible to the alien probe scanning the system. Status report, Steve called to his bridge crew. All ships maintaining stealth mode, his second officer replied. The alien probe has been in orbit for 18 hours. They're still watching our people on the surface, Steve nodded, his face grim. For 300 years, humanity had maintained this deception. They had built an empire among the stars while Earth pretended to be primitive. Now, for the first time, their cover was being tested by actual alien visitors. Sir, incoming message. From Earth Control, the communications officer announced. It's Director Carter. Priority channel. Steve activated the secure link. Ben Carter's face appeared on the screen, worry lines deep on his forehead. Steve, we have a problem, Ben said without greeting. The aliens are getting suspicious. Their lead scientist is detecting patterns that shouldn't exist for primitives. I'm aware, Steve replied. My question is, do we abort the masquerade or do we double down? I think we need to show them more than Earth, Steve. Maybe if they see humans on other worlds, truly primitive, they'll believe Earth is just another pre-industrial colony. Steve frowned. This was not part of any protocol they had trained for. That's risky, Ben. We've kept our colonies hidden for generations. If these aliens are council scouts like we think, revealing our presence off-world could trigger exactly what we've been trying to avoid. I know, Ben admitted, but I think the risk of exposure here is greater. I need you to guide them to witness some of our primitive colonies. Make it look accidental, like they're discovering us for the first time. Steve considered this carefully. Helen Wong, his colonial coordinator, had prepared contingencies for this exact scenario. Their outer colony worlds had maintained primitive facades for decades, just like Earth. All right, Steve decided. I'll route them toward the Kepler 45P2b colony. Helen's people there have been practicing the primitive act for years. But Ben, if this goes wrong— I know what's at stake, Ben interrupted. Prepare your end. We have 12 hours before I think they'll realize Earth humans are too organized to be truly primitive. The connection ended, and Steve immediately called Helen Wong. Helen, we're activating the Kepler scenario. The aliens need to, accidentally, discover your colony. Can your people be ready? Helen's voice was steady. We've been ready for years, Steve. The Kepler 452b colonists have maintained full primitive protocols. Even their children are raised with the deception. To them, living like primitives isn't an act, it's life. Good, Steve said. I'm going to create a false energy signature that will attract the alien probe. When they follow it, they'll find your world. Make it convincing. Leave it to us, Helen replied. Our people know what they need to do. In space, the alien probe continued its scan pattern. Crixtal 9 was growing more frustrated by the hour. The humans below seemed to know when they were being watched. Their mistakes were too convenient, their behaviors too coordinated. Sir, his science officer called. I'm detecting an unusual energy signature. It appears to be coming from the asteroid belt. Crixtal 9's tentacles moved quickly across his control station. Show me. The display revealed a faint but consistent energy pulse. It wasn't strong enough to indicate advanced technology, but it was too regular to be natural. It could be a natural phenomenon, Vexmora suggested. These humans are pre-industrial. They couldn't generate such signals. Perhaps, Crixtal 9 murmured. But let's investigate. Maintain monitoring of Earth, but send a probe to investigate. This signature. Steve watched the alien probe respond exactly as planned. The false energy signature was just interesting enough to investigate, but not sophisticated enough to suggest advanced technology. They took the bait, he announced to his crew. Divert power to the second signature. Lead them toward jump point, Alpha. The alien probe followed the energy trail across the system. As it approached jump point Alpha, Steve's team activated the next phase. A carefully controlled wormhole burst, made to look like a natural phenomenon, opened near the probe. On the alien ship, excitement rippled through the crew. Sir, we have a natural wormhole, the science officer reported. It appears to lead to another system. Fascinating, Crixtal 9 said. This is a rare phenomenon. What lies beyond? The probe's sensors detected life signs on the other side. Primitive life signs. There appears to be another inhabited world, the sensor operator announced. Population approximately 10,000. Technology level, pre-industrial. Crixtal 9 made his decision instantly. We're going through. This is too important a discovery to ignore. As the alien scout ship passed through the wormhole, Steve smiled grimly. Phase 2 was in motion. The aliens were about to discover that humans weren't unique to Earth. They existed on other worlds too, all at the same primitive development level. On Kepler 452b, Helen Wong stood in a simple wooden hut watching the sky. Through her quantum implant, she heard Steve's confirmation. Helen, they're coming through now. Remember, your people have never seen aliens. React with fear and wonder, but keep it primitive. No organized responses. Understood, Helen replied. She looked around at her colonists, all dressed in simple clothes, all carrying basic tools. Each knew their role perfectly. The alien probe appeared in their sky, and exactly as planned, the colonists scattered in apparent terror. Some dropped to the ground, others ran for cover, and a few brave souls stared upward in apparent awe. Above, Crixtal 9 watched with growing certainty. It appears humans are not unique to Earth, he said to Vexmora. They exist on multiple worlds, all at the same primitive level. Perhaps this is simply how this species develops. But in the back of his analytical mind, a small voice questioned, what were the odds that two separate human populations would evolve at exactly the same rate? And why did both groups show the same unusual patterns of behavior? On Kepler 452b, Helen Wang kept her people performing their primitive roles, knowing that humanity's greatest secret hung in the balance. The aliens were seeing what they wanted them to see. But would it be enough to satisfy their curiosity? In space, Steve Johnson monitored every detail, ready to spring the next phase of humanity's most elaborate deception. The network of hidden colonies, secret fleets, and underground facilities all worked together to maintain the illusion. They were humans. They were primitive. They were harmless. But how much longer could they keep the truth hidden? Thaxor had spent 3 days reviewing data from the human observations. As the Galactic Council's top intelligence analyst, he had reviewed thousands of primitive species over his career. But something about these humans bothered him. Show me the energy pattern analysis again, he told his assistant. The holographic display showed energy readings from both human worlds. While the levels suggested primitive societies, the distribution patterns were too uniform, too perfect. Sir, his assistant said, the patterns almost suggest coordinated power management, but that's impossible for primitives. Nothing is impossible, Thaxor replied slowly. Send a priority message to Crixtal 9. I want him to investigate specific locations I've identified. Tell him to look for irregularities. Light years away, in the Galactic Council headquarters, Mike Thompson sat in a disguised uniform at a maintenance console. For 20 years, he had worked undercover as a sanitation tech, monitoring council activities and feeding information back to Earth. His quantum implant buzzed with an incoming message from Earth Control. The code meant emergency protocols were active. The aliens had discovered something. Mike left his post and headed for a secure communication point. In the maintenance tunnels beneath the council building, he activated a hidden transmitter. Control, this is Shadow 1. What's the situation? Ben Carter's voice came through clearly. Mike, they've detected energy inconsistencies. We think they're about to figure everything out. We need you to initiate final protocol. Mike felt his blood run cold. Final protocol meant revealing humanity's true nature to the council. After centuries of hiding, after generations of deception, it was time to come clean. Are you sure, Ben? Once we do this, there's no going back. I'm sure, Ben replied. Better to reveal ourselves on our terms than have them discover us by force. You know the plan. Contact Karen Brown. She'll help you prepare the presentation. Mike closed the channel and made his way to a different section of the facility. Karen Brown lived in a small apartment complex reserved for mid-level council support staff. To everyone else, she was just another bureaucrat. In reality, she was the architect of humanity's entire deception strategy. When Mike arrived at her door and gave the coded knock, she opened it immediately. It's time? She asked simply. It's time, Mike confirmed. Karen grabbed a small case from her closet. Inside were documents they had prepared decades ago for this exact moment. The council meets in 3 hours. We need to move fast. Together, they made their way to the council chambers. Using Mike's maintenance access, they installed a small device that would give them control of the main display systems when needed. Meanwhile, on Earth, Ben Carter initiated the global alert. Every human on every world received the same message. Protocol complete, revelation imminent, prepare for new era. Above Earth, Steve Johnson ordered all cloaked vessels to stand by positions. If the revelation went badly, They needed to be ready. For defensive actions. Sir, the alien probe is returning from Kepler 452b, his sensor operator reported. They're heading directly for Earth. Keep watching, Steve ordered. Don't break cover until we get word from Mike. In the council chamber, the session was about to begin. Council members from dozens of species floated, crawled, or walked to their positions. Zixtharak Prime, the council leader, took center stage. We gathered to review the report on the primitive humans, Zixtharak announced. Crixtal 9, present your findings. Crixtal 9 approached the central speaking area. Honorable Council, these humans present unusual characteristics for a primitive species. Their tool precision, behavioral patterns, and energy signatures all suggest. He paused as Mike Thompson stepped forward from the maintenance area. Council guards moved to intercept, but Mike raised his hands. Honorable Council, Mike called out. Before you conclude your analysis, there is something you need to know. Security, Zixtharak boomed. Remove this maintenance worker. Wait, Karen Brown said, stepping beside Mike. She activated the device they had installed, and Earth's true image appeared on the main display. Not primitive camps, but glittering cities, space elevators, and orbital platforms. The council chamber fell silent. My name is Mike Thompson, he announced. I am not a maintenance worker. I am Earth's ambassador to this council. For 300 years, humanity has lived among you, learning your ways, understanding your policies, and yes, we have deceived you about our true nature. Angry voices erupted from several council members. Accusations of violation and deception filled the air. But Zixtharak raised a tentacle for silence. Explain, the council leader demanded. Karen Brown stepped forward. When humanity first detected council activity, we studied your history. We saw how rapidly advancing species were treated, either enslaved, destroyed, or forcibly limited in their growth. We chose self-preservation. You have been among us all this time? Crixtal 9 asked, his tentacles waving in agitation. Watching us while we watched your people on Earth? Yes, Mike confirmed. We have representatives throughout council space. We have established colonies on worlds you haven't even discovered yet. We have technology that matches or exceeds any member species. But we chose to remain hidden until we could better understand your intentions. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some council members demanded immediate military action. Others called for punishment. A few surprisingly expressed admiration for humanity's strategic thinking. Bexamora stepped forward. This deception, it has lasted for centuries. How many of you are truly among us? Thousands, Mike said honestly. In every major council institution, every key colony, every strategic location, we've been your janitors, your technicians, your researchers. Always watching, always learning. Zixtharak processed this information. And now you reveal yourselves. Why? Because your analysis was getting too close, Karen admitted. Crixtal 9 is brilliant. He would have discovered us soon anyway. We prefer to stand before you as equals, seeking membership, rather than be exposed as deceivers. The council leader looked at the image of Earth's true cities, then at the hundreds of humans being revealed throughout the chamber's maintenance and support areas. His primary intelligence calculated rapidly. The question becomes, Zixtharak said slowly, what do we do with a species clever enough to deceive us for 3 centuries? And more importantly, what other species might be doing the same thing, right now? In that moment, Mike knew their gamble had worked. The council wasn't thinking about punishment. They were thinking about policy change, about first contact protocols, about all the primitive worlds they were watching, wondering which ones might be watching them back. Earth's long deception was over. But humanity's true place in the galaxy was just beginning. 6 months later, Frank Davis stood at a podium he never thought existed. The council chamber had been modified to include Earth's official seat, and representatives from dozens of human colonies filled the observation areas. The primitive facade was gone forever. The new first contact protocols are now in effect, Frank announced to the assembled council members. Any species displaying primitive characteristics will be approached with patience and respect. No assumptions will be made about their true capabilities. From his seat among the council members, Crixtal 9 listened quietly. The brilliant scientist had spent months on Earth, studying what he had missed during his observations. The underground cities amazed him. The quantum communication network stunned him. The space fleet humbled him. Ambassador Davis, Zixtharak addressed from his central position. What of the other worlds currently under observation? How many, do you believe, are also advanced? Frank consulted his notes, though he knew the numbers by heart. Based on our own detection methods, we estimate at least 7 currently primitive species show signs of coordinated behavior similar to what humans displayed. We recommend full diplomatic approaches to all of them. The chamber buzzed with discussion. Several species had been watching these same worlds for decades, never suspecting deception. Beth Adams, who had arrived with the first official delegation from the Kepler colony, stood to speak. Honorable Council, our colonial worlds have maintained primitive facades for generations. We've learned that survival often requires unconventional methods. Perhaps others have reached the same conclusion. Vexmora, who had become one of humanity's strongest supporters, nodded in agreement. The humans have taught us an important lesson. We cannot judge a species' capability by their appearance. Their deception wasn't malicious, it was survival instinct refined to art. In the back of the chamber, Amy Rodriguez sat in formal diplomatic attire. No longer wearing animal skins, no longer pretending to hunt with primitive spears, she now served as Earth's cultural exchange coordinator. Next to her, Jake Miller, the same primitive who had first caught Crixtal 9's attention, worked as a liaison between Earth and the Council's research division. The humans have proposed something unprecedented, Zixtharak continued. They suggest creating an advanced species verification protocol. Any civilization displaying suspicious primitiveness would be approached directly, given the opportunity to reveal itself without fear of persecution. Thaxor, who had detected the first energy inconsistencies, raised a tentacle. Our analysis suggests this protocol could revolutionize first contact procedures. Instead of spending decades observing from distance, we make contact within months. We explain our peaceful intentions immediately. The Council voted. Species after species approved the new protocols. Only a few conservative members opposed the changes, clinging to old methods of surveillance and caution. After the vote, Frank approached Crixtal 9 privately. I wanted to thank you, he said. Your curiosity led to this moment. If you hadn't been so observant, I would have been fooled forever, Crixtal 9 completed. Your people taught me that intelligence isn't always obvious. I've learned much from studying your deception methods, perhaps too much. They shared what might be considered laughter between their species. Outside the council chamber, Steve Johnson and Helen Wong met with their former crews. The secret fleet was no longer secret. The hidden colonies were now official council territories. Humans walked among aliens openly for the first time in centuries. Strange to think our children will grow up without keeping secrets, Helen mused. Strange and wonderful, Steve agreed. Though I suspect some habits will die hard. We've been doing this for so long. Back on Earth, Ben Carter walked through what was once the underground control center. Now it served as a museum, showing visitors how humanity had maintained its deception. Children laughed at exhibits showing primitively dressed humans using sophisticated technology hidden in fake rocks and wooden tools. His old colleague, Karen Brown, joined him on a tour. Any regrets? She asked. None, Ben replied. We survived. We thrived, and now we're helping other species do the same. That's more than we hoped for when we started this. In the months that followed, 3 primitive species revealed themselves as advanced civilizations. Each had developed similar deception strategies. Each had feared persecution, and each had learned from humanity's successful transition. The Galactic Council changed fundamentally. No longer did they assume primitiveness meant helplessness. No longer did they watch from afar for decades. Instead, they approached each new species with openness and respect. Amy Rodriguez, now leading cultural exchange programs, visited the third revealed civilization. As she stood on their world, she marveled at how their hidden cities resembled early human concealment efforts. "The Council wants to understand," she told their leaders. "Not conquer, not control, just understand." "Your species showed us this was possible," their leader replied. "We watched your revelation. We prepared based on your example." Back at Council headquarters, Mike Thompson, no longer in maintenance uniforms, worked with former undercover humans from across Council space. Together they developed new training programs for Council diplomats, teaching them to look beyond surface appearances. Zix Tharak Prime called the first Universal Species Summit 6 months after humanity's revelation. Representatives from all known species attended, primitive and advanced, open and revealed. "We stand at a new beginning," the Council leader announced. "Thanks to one species' courage to reveal itself, we've learned that the galaxy holds more complexity and intelligence than we ever imagined. From this day forward, we approach every world, every species, with the understanding that appearances can deceive and survival takes many forms." As the summit concluded, Frank Davis walked with Crixtal 9 and Vex Mora. The unlikely trio had become friends during the transition months. "Do you think," Crixtal 9 asked, "that somewhere out there, a species is watching this summit, pretending to be primitive while secretly traveling the stars?" Frank smiled. "Almost certainly. And when they're ready, they'll know they can reveal themselves. They'll know the Council has changed. They'll know that survival strategies like ours are understood and respected. Perhaps," Vexmora added, "they'll teach us something new about survival, about adaptation, about the universe itself." As they walked through the chambers where humans once hid and now belonged, Frank felt a satisfaction he couldn't have imagined in the days of deception. Humanity hadn't just survived, they had changed the galaxy's approach to life itself. Above Earth, the stars shone brighter, no longer hiding humanity's presence but celebrating their emergence. The age of pretending was over. The age of true belonging had begun.